Hello there, and welcome back to Sonic Heroes. You can just call me Stent. Mostly just wanted, for the time being, to just show off this particular music piece. Really quite fond of it. It's for the multiplayer menu. Figured I may as well, since we're likely not going to get much of a chance to actually showcase the multiplayer, mostly because I'm the only one here. Anyways, last time we've managed to finally finish off Team Dark's story. The relentless gauntlet that was, which for the time being only just leaves Team Rose, which, well, it's the shortest one of the four, so hopefully it shouldn't take too long by comparison. And here, of course, we have Amy. And Cream, who it's kind of cynical looking into it, how she was basically just designed as the Tails equivalent for Amy. It's kind of a shame, really, because of course, with the whole team dynamic thing slowly fading off into the background, this Cream just became more and more irrelevant. And I'm not sure whether or not we're going to see much of a change to that with Dream Team, unfortunately. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not going to be counting the comics in anything that I say about the characters, mostly just the games, because, well, to be frank, I've not exactly caught up with the comics, mostly because I'm pretty certain they're on borrowed time already. Anyways, this is semi-unique to Team Rose, that being level 0 Seagate. Big, what are you doing? Yeah, this is just the tutorial level, which I'm just gonna try and skip past most of it since, well, this is the last team we're doing, so I think we're fairly attuned to how the teams work already, and it's kind of ironic considering Team Sonic Seaside Hill already sort of acts as a tutorial already, so I always found that quite odd. It's also kind of hilarious is that you can actually go for the tutorial again once you're done with this with Team Sonic. I mean, I get why this is here, because, well, beginner players, and especially seeing this is the old girl team, I'm just gonna say it, compared to most boys, most girls don't tend to be that big into video games. It's obviously not a one and done thing. Of course, there are girls who are into video games, but for those who are supposed to be just starting out in the series, I can sort of see the the logic behind making the girl characters basically the accessibility option, let's just say. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised this hasn't really become a thing in well, I say that, but then again, Amy's mostly just been relegated to the side, or, well, non-playable in any capacity, so I could potentially imagine a scenario where Amy, assuming she does end up being more prominent in the games alongside Tails and Knuckles, I could see her definitely being the accessibility option in that sense. Because she is sort of technically... that is sort of technically the case in Superstars already, with her double jump, her hammer... Oh yeah, I forgot Big's here too. I do sort of get why he's here, just to fill out the roster, but it seems so weird, especially considering what his character was basically supposed to be back in Adventure 1. It's just this sort of humorous everyman character thrown into this otherwise ridiculous situation just to accentuate the comedic value of it, if that makes any sense. Yet here he is, just completely tearing his way through robots like it's going out of fashion. Oh yeah, and it's the other. He is the other of the power type characters who has the belly flop. Personally though, I would say he's not as good as Vector in that sense, mostly because his attacks come out slower. Especially his finishers. Which is weird, because in that sense, Big's belly flop does come out quicker than Vector's, so... You could argue it comes down to preference of playstyle, though I genuinely say in terms of power type characters I prefer Vector. The slight delay on his body slam isn't quite as egregious as having to deal with slower ground combos, so it's quite interesting to think about really in terms of which power character is the best, because you could say in terms of raw power output it would be Knuckles, but in terms of range it would be Vector. I suppose it depends on personal preference, though of course with Vector you're far less likely to be sent careening off the edge of a level. Yes, the cute Banui can do it. It is kind of crazy to think about how we're basically starting halfway through the level. Especially considering, from what I've heard, some people actually just generally prefer this sort of length of stage levels. Especially considering stuff like Final Fortress, which can go on for like ages. Whereas here, it's mostly just relegated to 2 or 3 minutes, give or take. Also, yeah, I'm just gonna say it, Team Rose definitely has the best Team Blast in the game. It's the fastest, and it comes with a bunch of utility to it. It's quite an interesting thing about the utility as well, with the parts of it, because of course, with Team Sonic, you basically get a mini Team Blast afterwards with a Lightspeed attack. Team Darks, in terms of Team Blast, I'd say is arguably the worst in the game, because from my experience, as you probably seen on stream, their main gimmick with the time stop at the end is is just as much a hindrance as it is a help. Mostly because, well, in most cases you tend to get rid of all the enemies in one go anyway, so you're just sort of left there waiting for automated parts of the level to actually go. That just leaves Team Chaotix, which I would say is definitely a more interesting case. Because, well, its main utility is that it just gives you a bunch of rings, which is situationally useful. It is also good for building up extra team gauge, so you can just have back-to-back Team Blast potentially if you get a lot of enemies in each one. Oh, streams, yeah, streams, lagging a little bit. Apologies in advance. Okay. So if I had to rank the Team Blast, then I'd probably have to say Team Dark goes last. Team Sonic, I'd say, goes third, mostly just because the Sonic Overdrive is, especially in this port, fairly finicky, so it's... Especially when using it on a character that isn't Sonic, then it just becomes a bit less useful, more just sort of a janky little thing. Then of course you got Chaotix, you know, more rings is always good, as well as more chances to get Team Blast up. That just mostly leaves Team Rose as the best, which, given this is basically easy modo, that does sort of make sense. You know, free level up, invincibility, free shield, basically just giving you all these power-ups to just make the game even easier for you so you can just snowball it. Again, I don't really mind as an accessibility option. But it does sort of lead to this sort of humorous little situation where you got characters like Cream, who obviously were designed, especially in Advance 2, as an accessibility option, just basically becoming the most powerful characters in the series, because, well, if you played Advance 2, you know how powerful Cream is, and I could definitely see that being quite a humorous option. Ooh, there's a whole bunch of enemies over here. Let me just delete these real quick. Like, there's this whole little joke here about, well, in the community rather, about Amy's bracelets and how she's basically wearing inhibitor rings similar to Shadow. I could potentially actually see them running with that joke, just from accessibility options alone. She basically becomes one of the strongest characters in the series, which, well, she certainly had quite the movement tech in Frontiers, even though she was basically an entirely different character throughout that game. In terms of both characterization and moveset. Never really noticed this before, actually looking out at the horizon here. The sea here just generally, to me, seems endless here, which, again, I gotta reinforce from all the previous times I've said it. One thing I really love about this game is its sense of scale. It really feels like you're just going on this big ultimate adventure with all your favorite teams, and sometimes your least favorite teams. I think we're basically at the end of this point. Yep. There should be a nice change of pace at the very least, all the levels just flying by so quickly. Like, I'm pretty sure at this point we'd just be getting into Ocean Palace if this was Team Sonic's level. It's not even 15 minutes and we're already at the first boss. It's, maybe a wee bit embarrassing if we get to the end and we still have a bunch of time left, but I think I have something, fun ways of wrapping things up. How I usually do it when I used to play this game as a kid. It's kind of unfortunate how he's handling those controls there in the cutscene. It's just no comments. I'll just say that much. Trouble is one way of putting it, Cream. He literally blew up the moon at one point. Not that you'd notice. Oh yeah, and there's also less enemies here. Again, easy modo. So let's see how quickly we can actually burn down this boss, because again, his belly flop is faster than Vector's. It's also generally just a fun move to use. Oh, so close. I think we just get away with just... Come on. That's not what I want. There we go. See ya. I hope this isn't going to end up becoming one of those, yet another... Oh. Sure he is, Amy. Just keep telling yourself that. Jeez, where did you just go just now? That kind of reminds me though. There's one thing which I definitely noticed about looking back at Dream Team. The cheese, they used the exact same Chow sound effects they did in Adventure 2. I mean, I just find that kind of humorous in a you know, the same sort of baseless reference sense that we've been getting basically since Frontiers. I really hope that the series as a whole doesn't just devolve into that. Just, hey, remember all these games in the past that were better? You remember stuff like Sonic Heroes, the Chow Garden of Adventure 2, which we're never going to bring back at all, ever? It's generally just something which I've come to notice, especially in IDW, just... them substituting references to the story. I think that's the best way of putting it. Enough for Team. It feels weird to me, a lot of the extra Team Blasts here seem kind of pointless since I'm usually in situations where when I come up to a bunch of enemies, I don't have the Team Blast up fully charged yet, but you know what, since it comes up pretty fast... well, here we go again. Thankfully though, since we're here... Sir, can you not? We're busy at the moment. Now we can set off the Team Blast. Okay, so it's just in case you somehow died at that section. Okay. I'll take the free power cores. I do definitely like the invincibility theme though, it's just... I do kind of like how it's basically a sort of middle ground between the Heroes theme and the old Invincibility theme from Adventure 1 and 2. I do kind of miss that though, in all honesty. Wait, do I actually have... oh, okay. They actually have you opening doors. Interesting. Anyways, just thinking about, where I was before, yeah. The whole obsession with references. Again, to me, when at least I first played Frontiers, it seemed fine to me, mostly just as a, apology letter. That's how I really perceive base Frontiers, just one big apology letter for how the series was handled throughout the 2010s, which I appreciate, but at the very least, from this series now, I just generally want to see a fair bit of direction for once, because I think it's no surprise that this series has just been chasing trends basically since 06. You know, just... apologies, it's been a long week. It's, I'm admittedly a little bit tired, and hopefully that doesn't hamper too much my performance. Yeah, Frontiers. again, sorry, just... I thought it was fine, all the references, at least in Base Frontiers, just because of how the series had been treated from the 2010s, which I don't think we need to go into all that much, at least at the moment, but so far, ever since then, with Final Horizons and Superstars and Prime, it's just... I can't help but feel, despite the promise of improving, a lot of stuff coming out of Sonic Team so far seems kind of mediocre to me. Like, I'm fairly certain if you've seen my Superstar streams, you know how that ended. Just... a fun enough game, hampered by terrible boss design. Generally, I just found it highly disappointing. Because I wasn't even expecting much from Big. Why was Big moonwalking? Yeah, I wasn't really expecting much from Superstars, and yet even then I didn't find much enjoyment of it past the main story. Like, I put it with the bosses as best I could, but like the final... both of the final bosses and the true final boss and basically all of Trip's story, I couldn't bear it. I'm hoping that some stuff can be done, because I heard that allegedly there was going to be an update for Frontiers, or in a similar vein to an update to Superstars in the similar vein to Frontiers, that's what I meant to say. I'm mostly hoping that it can potentially alleviate a lot of the problems, though at this point I'll be surprised if it actually did. Okay, another key. We don't need to pick up any keys anymore, except in Lost Jungle. I keep forgetting to get a key there. See, she even has her own version of the head spinning line. I think we can just come up here with Cream. Let's see. Yep. I'm gonna see if I can avoid as many special stages as I can this time, because generally I'd prefer us to get through this as quick as possible, because, well, we've seen a fair few of these levels already. Apologies then if I don't really have much to say in that regard. I keep forgetting what this particular paddle is for. Okay, just some rings. I keep forgetting that Flight Formation can actually break containers. It's just... I keep expecting the only way to destroy these wooden containers is with like a somersault, or Vulcan cannon shot, or a punch. Generally just used how they work in Adventure 2, which I wanted to save for a particularly special occasion, since, well, it does mean quite a lot to me. I'll have to make plans for that, though. Let's see. Ooh. And just like that, we're at the end already. I can't really feel this is still taking a fair while, though, so, apologies for that. Yeah, still almost half an hour in. We're just getting into, Arguably one of the most egregious parts of this entire campaign. Amy's whole relationship with Sonic, which... I'll be honest, I didn't really mind. I mean, I get there was a fair few jokes about it back in the mid-2000s about how obsessive Amy was, and I think that's the key word. She was too obsessive as opposed to, you know, actually just generally showcasing a lot of her affection for Sonic. That's generally, I think, the best wording that I've, Oh, that was... It's over already, okay. I can only dread to imagine what the Chaotix is going to be like in that case. I remember this scene being quite humorous, though. I say a little bit funny, it's just one of those whole line reading things for localization in English. With that line, the Korean is like, oh, Sonic must be really, and Amy in the English one is like, really? What? Whereas in the Japanese, as you just heard, she's meant to be kind of angry when Cream says that, and it's just not one of those things really where generally a lot of stuff was either misinterpreted or just lost in translation. Anyways, here we are again with a pinball, my favourite. Just gonna switch to Amy so we can actually proceed. Keep forgetting you can do that, and I don't think... Look at that, we actually have a booster to actually get us out of the pinball as quick as possible. That's a nice change. And, here's big. Okay, so apparently everyone's heads are spinning. Only difference is that Tails is the one who's most egregiously known for it, even though literally Amy and Cream say pretty much the exact same thing, at least in the dub. From what I could see, there wasn't really any sort of retranslated dub for this game, at least not yet. Certainly up the... We do get one at some point at the very least. Yes, I managed to skip that entire section. And, there we go, babe, thank you. One thing which I also noticed about that particular cutscene at the start of the level is that you heard the goal ring. There it is. You were just in this exact spot, and the goal ring was just right above us. All we had to do was just turn around. That's just one of those things which I always found kind of humorous about this level. Nice to see we're mostly just going off of time bonuses for these. Yeah, it really feels like we're going for more Adventure 2 style times for these. Just generally 2 to 3 minutes. There we go. Oh, we're actually going the bottom route this time, okay. Oh, we actually get to showcase Oh. Okay, I was led to assume that Cream's whole cheese attack was one of the worst in the game. It's just... No, apparently it just instant kills lighter enemies. Regardless of level, that was the word. And again, here we have the issue of our teammates still being absent. Gonna definitely need Cream for this, and yet she's basically gone. I'm gonna switch to Amy for this, since she has her propeller. There we go. Amy again proving why she's one of the best, and Cream is still just dead. I didn't think that's not very becoming of the strongest character in the series. Honestly, Cream. I know a lot of his strength technically comes from cheese, but it's still funnier to me that to consider the strongest character in the series just the Bunui, for obvious reasons. Oh yeah, Meg, he just joined us whilst we were just... Well, I was just trying to find words, that's it, that's the word. That's what I was trying to say, just... It's been a long week. Or at the very least it's felt like a long week. How did I not take damage there? I don't think we need to worry about any extra lives. I just want to get through this as quick as I can. There we go. At the very least, I actually managed to figure out the name of these flying pawns. They're called flappers. I remember specifically going out of my way to try to find the correct names for all these robots. Like, we got the pawns here. Apparently, in Egg Fleet, there's supposedly some steel pawns, or solid pawns as they're called in the game. Basically, just like the metal flappers, which you constantly see from this level onwards with all the other characters. Well, that was embarrassing. So far, weirdly enough, it seems to be one of the longer levels. Alright, only tell you what's... Only tell... Sorry, only tell me what you want to say. That's what I meant to get across, in some way, shape, or form. I'm fairly certain in some instances you can actually just break loose of that ramp and just fall to the end more natural-like. Sort of like this. Okay, I was kind of confused why there wasn't a target switch. But there is a target switch right there, which doesn't really do anything. Yeah, it was admittedly a little... Okay. Yeah, admittedly it was a little bit of an oddity for me, first as well, being quite used to the Duke Nukem voice. I think the Japanese voice does sort of get across the point of Big's character a little better in my opinion, just being more this laid-back everyman as opposed to brain as smooth as a bowling ball. I mean, I suppose you could still consider him like no thoughts, head empty. It's just personal preference to me. It's generally what I've always defaulted to, basically since the 2000s, and especially hearing all the retranslated dialogue for Adventure 1 to basically almost all of the games, it's generally come to be my personal preference, partially due to consistency, but mostly just due to the fact that I watched Sonic X as a kid. Does it say Froggy? Technically, instead of Frog, he goes in Gailkun, which basically just translates out to frog. It's basically the Japanese equivalent of Froggy. Look at that, we're almost done with Robot Carnival already. This is going by so much quicker in comparison to the other swans. Don't even need to use the Team Blast for this. Got any more on ya? Jellyfish jump scare, there we go. I remember the jellyfish one as having a fairly odd bad nickname in this. I'll have to check again, I don't really remember it at the moment, compared to, say, the turtle robots, which are weirdly just called Camerons. As in the name Cameron. Look at that, Rail Canyon already, we're almost halfway through. And again, we basically start all the way closer to the... not at the end, basically, we're right by this whole... Look at all these canyons, though I must say, once again, bigger sense of scale than Frontiers. Just putting it out there, just... this whole game just feels huge. I think that might just be my cold, or at the very least my sniffles. I've had this for a little bit. Hopefully it relents at some point, because generally speaking, having the sniffles has not exactly been the most pleasant of experiences. Oh, we actually go... I forgot we actually go this way, the Team Rose. Wow. It also means we get to go through this even more times. Let's see. Whoa. Yep. Hey, nice to see you, Ryan. We're just making our way through good old Rail Canyon and just marveling about how big everything is. Just... it was always weird to me, even as a kid, I always thought that in terms of, the size of these levels, I've always found them, at the very least, satisfactory, when I wasn't thinking they went on for too long, like with some of Team Dark's levels. Here, though, I feel it's, generally fairly nice, just to get a nice little bite-sized experience. You know, when you're not, I mean that to say when you're not a beginner at this, because of course this is the last one we're doing. Just I feel in terms of casually coming back to this game, I can see a lot of people, me included as a kid, coming back to Team Rose mostly just for the more bite-sized experience. I mean, I'm sure they can, but personally I'm satisfied the way they are at the moment. Any bigger and I fear they might become an impairment. I'll admit I've never actually gone down the lower route there. I noticed there was a speed boost down there, and yet... I say speed boost, I mean dash panel. I forgot they put a spring down there as opposed to just dropping you down into the abyss. I'm still gonna... oh, and they even have all these little panels here, so you don't have to default to fly formation to get over everything. Kind of bizarre, really. And that's the way to end a level. I gotta admit there, with it coming out to the train station, it did feel like an amusement park ride more so than the other levels. Just seeing that little bit of a scare at the end just before it comes out to the end. Admittedly, I forgot as to where exactly this, yeah, I could see that. The rails haven't... My Twitter, I don't have a Twitter, unfortunately. Left that back in 2016. As regards to the rails, admittedly, I've, really come to see them as a real sort of replacement for level design, especially when momentum has become less of a focus. I do hope that with Update 2 to Frontiers especially, we do get a slight more emphasis on momentum in these, in future games, because especially going back to like the classic games. I did get that sort of real sense of exhilaration with actually getting it right up. That's for me to know what sort of heart that I have. Still used to having one of those rhino cars come down here. It is still satisfying to just belly flop down those shafts though. Oh yeah, and I also forgot how short this level in particular was. I think, yeah, there's the goal ring right there, and look at that, 2 minutes already and we can just jump off of here and sail over to the goal ring. Simple as. Verbalays. Admittedly, I've done my best to try and keep out of stuff like that. I'm led to assume it's not much good though. Dread to imagine how this is going to turn out, though. Look at her little hop there, just... I'm not sure I really should say anything about it, but just... Especially in Japanese, cream in these games is generally one of the most adorable things in this series. If not the most adorable. Which, you know, intention and all that. And we actually, well, we got rid of the cannon at the very least. Oh, that guy. Yeah, I've heard about that at the very least. I just didn't remember the name. Yeah, that's, I've seen a lot of funny memes regarding that, like obviously the funny chasing memes with stuff like that one Linkara gif especially. I thought I'd fallen to my death there, but apparently I didn't. I think now though I can just yeah, do this. Come on. Just gotta wait for him to be over not a bottomless pit, and then we just do that. Yeah, the overlay stuff. I will admit I know animation is definitely expensive, but especially given for what you'd normally expect to do with that money, I'd expect it to be a bit more, for lack of a better word, raunchy than what it was, which was generally a bit of an odd case. Amy, you don't want to do that. I gotta admit, Big's mouth movements in this especially are some of the weirdest in the game with these models and animations. Like, aside from the sideways mouths and the plasticine textures, I'd say that the normal models are generally fine, but Big with his mouth especially just looks weird. Especially in this cutscene. And already we're back in my favorite level. Sweet. It's not even been an hour. Again, I can't stop ragging on about this. This whole level to me just feels huge. Like, take a look at the back. I should probably get to an actual platform so I can have better emphasis, but look at how big this place is. Like, the background with the forest and the river. It just feels like it goes on forever. Like with the ocean back in Ocean Palace, it just... implying this sense of scale whilst not actually doing much to actually... I'll rephrase that. Just giving off this illusion of just a grander sense of scale than there actually is. It's one of the things that I've really come to appreciate about this game. Still also found it humorous, especially, you know, looking back. The frogs here, I'm pretty sure, are just the same models as Froggy from Adventure 1. Just a bit bigger is all. Like, it's about the same markings and everything, it's just bigger. I will admit a little bit of an oddity which I've noticed with this game with regards to the teams is that Team Rose especially generally isn't exactly the most of an actual... It's not the biggest team dynamic, should I say. The whole team mostly revolves around Amy. With both the motivations and the plot, this is basically just the Amy show with Cream and Big just as side characters rather than, you know, the camaraderie you'd see with the Chaotix or Team Sonic. I sort of get that sense from Team Dark as well, where it's less so much a team and more of a group of individuals who happen to work well together, I suppose. The Team Dark dynamic I definitely say was improved in 06. And expanded media like Archie. I think generally that's where a lot of the love of Team Dark comes from. Just Archie, 06. Oh, stream's acting up again. Right, I gotta remember this time to actually pick up a key, because I keep forgetting to pick up a key in this next level. Shouldn't be too hard, though. And here we are, face to face again, once again with the egg hammers. Kind of surprised, in all things considered, that they still decide to keep the egg hammer introduction in this level as opposed to introducing them in a later one. I also find it kind of humorous that these black flappers are called needle flappers. I mean, it's accurate, but I'm not sure needle would be the word that I'd personally use for them. I can only hope this time that we don't experience any mishaps with the swings again. Like, here we go, moment. Oh, wait, we actually get a platform here. Okay, moment of truth. Nice. Still have no idea what's going on over there. Generally speaking, obviously Team Rose is the best team for actually gathering the Chaos Emeralds, partly due to the length of the levels and also just because you have a far less chance of getting hit if you just use as many team lasts as possible since invincibility. Generally, I feel the only way you can really lose any ring... Oh, I didn't notice you could actually knock those fruits around with Thunder Shoot. That's a new one on me. Look at that. It's like there's actual physics. Gotta admit though, even this level just feels big. Yeah, the other factor for... as well as getting invincibility along with the shield, it basically guaranteed... Basically, you have to be a very, very bad player at this game to not finish a level with a key. You can even see the enemies in the background there. I guess it's sort of an indication of, yeah, there is more to these levels. Come back in another team that isn't this one. Alright, this is probably going to be the first one where we don't get an A rank. And it's with our old friends again. Oh, I forgot the special stage. Probably gonna be the last one we actually see, though, because, well, still surprised that I managed to get the red emerald on my first go. Oh. Yeah, I've been experiencing a fair few of those in the stream, unfortunately. Hopefully you can bear with it. Come on. We're almost halfway there already. This can't end like this. I feel, generally speaking, it's easy to actually get the emeralds on the corners like this. There we go. That's all the emeralds. Nice. Here we go. Hey, Cream, I was just thinking about meeting up with your mom or something. Hey, Amy, what do you... This is between me and Cream's mom, what do you mean? Ask me, what are you talking about? Not this again, Charmy. I wanted to make it up to Cream and her mom. Still love this music, but obviously this was my first experience with these particular boss fights. And SBO, what do you do? Here we are again with this nonsense. Just gonna quickly restart, so hopefully we don't get stun locked. But yeah, I think for these particular boss fights, Amy's probably the best speed type character for them. Well, we may be here a little bit. This might actually be the longest the thing we take that takes up the majority of time on the stream. Come on, away with you. I did it again. Right, this may take a little bit. Guess just gotta not get greedy with him this time. Okay. Oh, Vector, please. Yeah, small problem which I've noticed with Amy's Tornado Hammer is it does come out fairly slowly. Come on. You gotta go, SBO. Okay, never mind. I guess we're just gonna be here a little bit. Well, they're at least hoping this doesn't just eat through all my lives. I'm probably gonna need some of those for Egg Emperor. Come on, get going. Oh, there you are. Come on, away you go. Yeah, Espio's really hard to just pin down. Right. I've noticed in general that these... Oh, they actually got rid of Cream. That's a shame. These boss fights especially are a bit of a, just, for lack of a better word, crapshoots. Sometimes you get lucky and just knock them out instantly. Other times you're just sort of waiting around to... You know what? I'm just gonna do this. Get body slammed. Get Gen 1 Snorlaxed. Get out of here, SBO. You can't do anything against this. Please, SPL, just go. We have places to be, and I really feel this is definitely a PC issue. Just finally. Oh boy. A whole minute and a half of that. Still, that was the last of those we had to endure. How do you manage to get to Haunted Mansion from Swampy Jungle, though? Even adjust his belt. I think that moment there is probably one of the best moments for him in this whole thing, which obviously it's more a placation in this sense than anything else, but I do generally like that. Just through all the obsession, which obviously isn't as bad as, say, for example, X or especially Battle. Amy is still generally supportive of her teammates, which is more than can be said for free riders. Her treating Vector like complete garbo. I really feel as though the whole Amy Stalker thing mostly just got started in X, since that was generally where a lot of it was perceived. I think by the most people. Because I don't think proportionally a lot of people played Battle in comparison to Heroes. I mean, obviously there's the whole I choose Sonic over the world thing from 06, which I can sort of get what she meant by that, in that she trusted Sonic to not turn evil and try to destroy the world, but I feel generally just like a lot of stuff in 06, it could have been handled a lot better. I suppose, speaking of 06, admittedly, I've never played Free Riders. I've seen the cutscenes at the very least, where a lot of the egregiousness comes from, but that's mostly just because I knew mostly that the Kinect wasn't exactly the best of gaming innovations, and generally opted not to get one, and from what I've seen at the very least, I feel I can, despite not playing it, safely conclude that Free Riders is the worst game in the series. Like, as a whole, just generally the worst game. In terms of gameplay, it's less functional than Secret Rings. In terms of characterization and narrative, it's a lot more simple and... well, it's more simple, predictable, and has characterization on par with the rest of the 2010s, so... oh, actually get ring race, nice. I remember that had a fairly fun version of the Hedgehog boss fight as one of the stages. Ironically, this is arguably the less scary version of this level, mostly because it's the shortest and there's no giant spiders to worry about. I mean, if Free Riders came out and it actually had a proper control scheme, I could definitely see it being better received, though whether or not the characterization would have been torn to shreds is another matter. I still think the Riders games are something to actually revisit at some point, because I have a lot of fond memories, especially of the first one. The second one had a lot of just off-the-wall crazy stuff in terms of story, but gameplay-wise I remember it being a little bit of a step down in terms of its mechanics, mostly just getting rid of the nuances of the first game in favor of just going full in on the gravity mechanic, which was fairly fun. Thoughts on Boom? I didn't play Boom either. That was fairly interesting, because I remember my thoughts with regards to the build-up to that. You know, seeing the new designs and the new direction it was going, etc., and thought that at the very least it was going to be a fine game, it was going to be okay, going off of what I'd experienced previously with Lost World, which almost made me give up the series, and then I saw in fact that excuse me, I saw in fact that the reviews for Rise of Lyric and it just noped out instantly. Not wanting another 06 situation where I gotten suckered into getting another terrible game. He said going on to later get Destiny instead. I mean, I'm sure the portable titles are better than Rise of Lyric, purely on the merit that they're not Rise of Lyric. What's that's worth, though, I'm not really certain. They generally seem quite mediocre, and my perception on the Boom series, especially after what I'd seen of the cartoons, generally dissuaded me from getting any more. This is a neat detail I liked about Team Rose's version of this level. They actually have like a door here, which I always sort of perceived as going into this creepy graveyard area. But I suppose, speaking of shows, that does sort of remind me of what I was trying to say with regards to 06. In that, I generally feel that given the damage it did, I see no harm really in just striking it from canon altogether, especially since it never actually happened in the first place. And I think the same could be said now that everything has actually wrapped up with it, Sonic Prime. Admittedly, once again, I mostly just watch a fair bit of it on YouTube, but from what I've seen, at the very least, I'll probably have to give it a chance of my own, but personally speaking, I didn't really have a Netflix at the time. Well, I technically had a family Netflix, but didn't want to partake in it, mostly because, well, when Prime was announced for Netflix, I just saw, oh, it's a Sonic show on the same streaming service which thought Cuties was suitable for human consumption. I'll pass. Yeah, I've heard a lot of poor stuff with regards to the last. I'm not sure I actually want to call it a season, because it's technically one 24 in quotations episode season split into 3 parts, so I feel the better way to going about it is season 1 part 1, season 1 part 2, part 3, etc. In that sense, I've definitely heard a lot of poor stuff about part 3, at the very least. Mostly with regards to its ending, and especially its pacing, which is generally wastes a fair bit of time for 4 episodes, which could have been allocated to doing other stuff, and generally the whole Sonic 9 dichotomy, when you really think about it, does sort of fall apart. I'll probably have to see it for myself at some point, just to, hello? Are there any enemies about? Oh, there was one stuck on the ceiling. Wait, are we actually? Oh, I guess we're just stuck here then. Yeah, I did hear at least about them doing a Sonic 06 with the ending, which is why I brought it up. So in that sense, I feel even if it isn't actually canon, it deserves to be struck from canon for that reason anyway, mostly just because it turned out to be a fair bit of a waste of time. It is kind of a shame though, because when I heard the whole multiverse aspect of Sonic Prime, I did have my own view of what would potentially be a cool direction to go with it, which was essentially, to boil it down, basically an official version of Sonic Villains. where you basically have all these different iterations of Sonic over the years coming together to face across all their biggest and baddest villains. Like, you could have Game Sonic teams up with Archie Sonic, teams up with Fleetway Sonic, X Sonic, Satia AOSTH Sonic. I almost said Satia, but that's technically Archie as well. You just have them all going up in all his just crazy mismatch situations. Like, we could have... I'm just imagining right now a potential episode which is focused on like a Dark Sonic versus Fleetway Supersonic feud. I know it's fan servicey, but especially considering how popular those iterations of Sonic are, I can just generally see that still being quite fun to just go mental with the entire history of this media, which I think are technically all on Netflix. Could be wrong. Now I'm also just imagining like them introducing Underground Sonic with his three siblings, and in the middle of the battle they all just break into song, and all the other versions of Sonic just turn to them like, "What are you doing? Why are you breaking out the song in the middle of this fight scene?" I think Sonic villains are still a thing. It's mostly just slow progress, I think. I'll have to look into it a little bit more. But I imagine they may have to do a little bit of rewriting if they want to include stuff like Surge. Because I imagine Surge would be a fairly popular demand edition. We'll admit though, I definitely feel they could have done a lot more with Surge rather than just being basically a more derivative version of Scourge. Like, you got them both in this more quandary where they're technically just created as basically just derivatives of someone else. Like, obviously you got Scourge being evil Sonic, and you got Surge being made by Starline to be an evil Sonic, and the fact that they're green as well, I feel as though there could have been more done to differentiate them. Could be me just rambling though, it's been a fair bit since I checked in on IDW. That's one way of putting it. Surge at the very least seems a fair bit more volatile from what I've seen. Then again, she didn't basically just take over her version of the world and become its king by force. I also forgot this was the main sort of level to actually make use of these particular cannons with the buttons on them, which actually act as platforms that lift up when you belly flop them. That was a fairly underutilized mechanic. Didn't expect these levels to actually go by this quickly, though, I must say. I'm sure you got we're coming up to some of the longer ones, but we are basically at the end now. And we don't have to worry about that laser section at the end of Final Fortress, which is going to be fun. And kind of a shame we also don't get the running into the main part of the ship with Team Rose, but I guess that's just a little something, a little treat that awaits you when you decide to try out Team Sonic after playing this, assuming this is your first run. Yeah, I'm fairly certain I've seen that one. Then again, in ITW, Eggman seems to have a tendency to just command grab every single one of these aminals which comes within grabbing range. It is funny to see, though. I feel as though it's a little bit diminishing returns, especially after Starline. In terms of command grabs, that was a fairly tough act to follow. I will admit, when it comes to this particular section, I do kind of miss the triangle jump, which I guess Amy doesn't have for accessibility reasons, not wanting to overload the player. Stuff like this, which generally makes me miss, the power-ups in the previous games, which I feel were fun the way that they basically just act as an elongated tutorial. You got City Escape, for example, which acts as just, you know, general tutorial, teaching you the fundamentals, and then once you get to Metal Harbor, where you're actually familiar with all the fundamentals, then it gives you the Lightspeed shoes and it says, hey, you actually got this other technique which you can now use. And you can also use it in the last level as well. If we do end up getting more linear style Sonic games in the future and not just open zone, I do personally hope they bring that back. I feel that's generally an underappreciated line from Cream as well, just maybe he doesn't like his neighbors much. I like that the release has generally quite a few opportunities to actually get keys here. It's like they knew that the last of the special stages was generally quite tough, and what's nice here is you don't even get to worry about any of the heavy egg hammers or E2000Rs, you just get the standard versions, which generally speaking you can take care of fairly easily. I think this is the first time you actually have one of these switch puzzles as Team Rose, and no self-destruct button for some reason, even though it explodes behind you. See, we even get past references in this game as well. It's just like Frontiers in that sense, though. Personally speaking, I do think I prefer how it's handled here, where it's more, well, there isn't too much difference. It's not completely overbearing, but it doesn't completely overload you with past references. It's more just sort of to link back to previous games to make them feel like it's all part of this over-encompassing narrative thread, which ironically enough ended with the next game. It'll probably be a while before I stream that, though. Especially if I am in the condition I'm in. Alright, now we see if I can actually get the last temple for a second time. Don't count on it. Yep, I'm pretty sure I've lost already. Yeah, this level especially was particularly difficult for me as a kid. Like that, you can hardly see those particular obstacles coming. But it does sort of remind me, thinking about it, how exactly will they end up porting Sonic Rush if they ever do? Because obviously these special stages were heavily reliant on the touchscreen back in Rush, and I have no idea how they're going to be able to translate that into, well, just more analog controls, especially given how in some of those levels you really had to thread the needle by the end. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get this emerald this time, unfortunately. Thankfully, though, I already got the red emerald in the Chaotix playthrough, so I don't think we have to worry what is going on. Yeah, I think we've lost it. That's a shame. I'm not sure if it actually is a particular detail, but I remember in particular with all the various Eggmen that you go against with each team, they have different lens colors on their goggles. I think it's more noticeable in Team Dark's where the lenses are red. I also feel it's generally quite crazy how there's hardly any changes to this boss for Team Rose. I remember as a kid, it really felt like a real big difficulty spike going from a fairly easy Final Fortress to this. That is, of course, until you actually get here, and then you can just do this. Look at that health bar fall. Look at Amy go. She's There we go. You went down fairly easy to me, Eggman. Generally seems part of the course of at this point. Sorry for taking down this boss in the exact same way all 4 times, but that is the quickest and most efficient way, at least from what I recall. And none of them question the fact that there's just this weird metal gooey puddle that Eggman just melted into. No one's gonna question the big puddle of liquid metal. Nope, she's just gonna keep lusting over the blue boy. The puddle's still there in the bottom right. Well, Team Rose. Like I said, I generally feel that it was a fairly good accessibility option, except for Egg Emperor generally being a bit more of a difficulty spike, but I generally feel that I'm personally fine with characters like Amy and Cream generally being more accessibility options compared to the rest of the cast, where their stuff is easier, but they do technically have more limited movesets, which I can see potentially being quite intrusive, especially given Frontier's Amy, which again generally feels like a completely different character, but I generally feel that she could definitely fill the niche of accessibility option character, if that makes any sense. I know it's kind of it might sound derogatory, but I mean I generally mean for beginners and people who aren't exactly the most acclimatized to video games. Generally, I hope that Amy can sort of take up that role, because So I imagine she could appeal quite a fair bit to especially newcomers to the series, like, you know, people just coming off of the movies and such, wanting to get into the series proper, and then you just have this character and what's that? You're not exactly the best at video games? Well, here's this one character who can help see you through the fundamentals, and then you can try out the rest of the cast with the more complex gameplay and movesets, and generally get a little bit more out of them. Whether that will actually happen, though, I can't imagine it not really being the case, especially just the sheer amount of moveset options Amy had in Frontiers, and especially some fan content I've seen. Another thing which I also found weird is that all the other, like, team theme songs were all about the teams themselves, and yet Team Rose's team, once again, is just completely focused around Amy. To the point where it could basically just be considered her new theme, just along the lines of everyone's revamped themes in Adventure 2. Defeat Last Evil. You could have worded it a little bit better, but, yeah. Now we move on to the big boy. Last story. And since we already have all... Oh. You call that a silhouette? I can basically make out his entire thing. I do like as well how he's basically just clawing his way out of the box there. In any case, let's wrap this up. And all of them just so happen to be in the area. Kind of a jump compared to the ending of Team Rosa, though. Anyways, here he is. Your lives are worth nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should all game over. Now! Yeah, it's I was waiting to do that, if you couldn't tell. I will admit, though, it is definitely kind of a shame we never actually got a true Neo-Metal Sonic fight. Instead, it just immediately transforms into this unrecognizable thing, which I do get character-wise, basically just going to any lengths possible just to beat Sonic and prove himself the real one, but I feel this could have generally been a bit more climactic if he'd have just gone... We'd fought him as Neo-Metal first, and then, as a desperation move, he turned into this. This just monstrous cacophony of wires. Look, even the robots are scared of it. I like this. It's like, oh, if only we had the 7 Chaos Emeralds! And we're just like, oh, you mean these things we picked up on the side of the road? They really do look like candy in this cutscene, don't they? Just like boiled sweets and Jolly Rancher. Sonic, where did you put that? Here we go. Admittedly, it doesn't hit quite as hard in Japanese. Still, we have a an alternate for that, which we'll get into later. Anyways, Metal Madness, not to be confused with Metallic Madness. Let me just go over here and just unload Team Blast after Team Blast into. Hopefully I don't fall off this time. Yep. And then I could just... It's kind of weird that Amy doesn't have much more to say about this guy. You know, coming face to face with Metal Sonic again for the first time since technically CD. You'd think that he'd have a little bit more to say about seeing her old kidnapper again, but apparently not. Yeah, Team Rose is generally the easiest part of this whole segment. I really need a drink after this. Nice. Okay, and I think we can afford to just, well, I think it basically, expects you to go off and get all the, power-ups like this. Kinda weird we don't get any power-ups for Vector, though. You'd think that we get power-ups for Vector here, but instead Espio, I never really got that. So what is Espio gonna do against this, which is this one character who is obviously long range? I keep expecting Charmy to say Tatsugeki at any point. Yeah, there's also Charmy's, what Metal, what did you just do? Yeah, we'll just finish this off with your, the Team Blast, just a style. This one definitely is the longest one, I must say. Yep. I know where the Chaotix don't have anything to say about this guy, but then again, I don't think Team Knuckles Chaotix is canon anymore. At least it doesn't seem that way. I guess it is kind of neat at the very least that Team Dark actually gets to go level 3 against this guy. The only ones who are actually able to. Though, yeah, Omega once again showcasing why he's the worst of the power type characters again. Very often just leaves himself open to attacks. Can I come down, please? Thank you. Look at that, we're done with that already. Now we move on to the good bits. I can actually get excited. As for no Super Shadow in here, I don't entirely mind, because, well, you could say, you know, lack of memory. It sort of goes against the point of the way this whole thing is structured, and it would probably be kind of awkward. Anyways, now we come up to the best bits. I've been looking forward to this. Yeah. Still no Super Knuckles, which is a shame. Alright, here we go. Unfortunately, I don't have the, instant team blast gauge glitch to sort of cheese me through this, so we're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. Whilst we listen to one of the best songs in the series. It's kind of weird though, I wasn't able to actually get to this boss for the longest time, so... For the longest time, this whole theme, despite how cool it was a little bit lost on me. I think the first time I actually heard it was like, either online or... I think in Black Knight with one of the medals you can get. I want to figure out how I can manage to get to stream Black Knight though. I have a lot of fond memories of that one. Do 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 do. I just noticed I don't think those white streaks are actually on Metallic Madness. I feel it definitely does a lot to complete the look of this thing though. Despite it being unrecognizable as Metal Sonic, it still does look cool in its own right. Even though I'm not entirely certain what the lobster claw is for. There we go. Can't help but feel bad for Metal Sonic though, in all honesty. Especially in IDW, he's basically just been reduced to like a jobber, and this was his one big moment. This is like his big final stand to prove himself against Sonic, and well, look what's becoming of that. I forgot how many times you actually have to team blast him though, so we'll just have to keep going until we can go no more. Love this particular... love this little riff here. Okay, there we go. He said the thing! Alright, let's see. How many times do I have to... How many licks does it get to the Tootsie Roll center with a metal pop? I think this is like 5 or 6. Okay, it's over. Okay, take care. I will admit I do definitely get a little bit of a laugh out of the English version of that line. Too bad it's all over for you. It really does sound like something you'd hear on the playground. It's so cheesy, I can't help but love it. And here we go, here's the good Japanese lines. Gotta love that English. The weird thing is, unless you really want to count free riders, I don't think that rematch has ever actually happened yet. Despite the Metal Sonic oversaturation, the long-awaited rematch between Sonic and Metal Sonic from this game still hasn't happened yet. Because technically the next time in the timeline we see Metal Sonic is in Forces, and that's an illusion by Eggman, weirdly enough. Illusion by Infinite and Eggman. Look at him, he's just sneaking off like a... He really is such a cartoon. Look at him run! I just noticed his funny run cycle there, it's just great. I also love this line delivery right here. We are Sonic Heroes! Apologies, but I just love it. I just love this whole game's big stupid energy. Obviously, it's rife with problems, it's jank, the characterization a lot of the times is off, especially with the likes of Tails and Amy and Rouge, technically speaking, but... just the whole energy this game gives off, just being one big celebration, it's just... celebrating the fact that it's Sonic, and I love that about it. Just big and loud and bombastic, and it doesn't make the most sense with itself at times, but it's just, aside of course from some levels, it's just generally having a lot of fun with itself, and I definitely kind of miss that about the series, like especially Frontiers and the IDW comics just devolving into this dark, depressing nightmare. I love when we get a few... I suppose that's generally the whole dichotomy of it. For the longest time we've asked for darker stories, and we've gotten darker stories, and they're generally not great. I feel the longest time we've been misconcepting what Sonic really needs for stories. Generally, I'd say it doesn't necessarily need to be darker. I'd say in terms of tone, Adventure got it pretty much bang on. The stuff like Heroes as well, I'm perfectly fine with. I think the main issue is a lack of substance, really. Like, a lot of the characters fall flat, a lot of the story falls flat, and is generally uninteresting and just sort of convinces the wider audience that it's generally just... this series is just mostly appealing to the older fans who could never let it go, or, well, people who spend a little bit more time on the 34s than they should, let's just say. I feel generally, especially with how the comics have been received, it's not exactly helped matters. I mostly just hope that in future we can get some the stories with substance, stories that actually have something to yeah, no, I'm not gonna get all the A ranks, at least not this time, but it's probably something I'm gonna have to actually sit down and properly articulate, but generally speaking, I do miss, or more specifically just do want stories in the series that actually have something to say, like Adventure technically had something to say, Forces had... not Forces, Adventure 2 had something to say. This one, I'd say, not really, but it was, for the time at the very least, it was generally just a fun little introduction to the series. Anyways, here's how I usually tend to end off things when I'm playing for the, when I was playing as a kid, which is generally just going through Seagates again, which you can do again with Team Sonic. This is generally just a fun way to wrap things up for a reason you'll see in a little bit. It's a weird way to end things off, I know, but it's how I often did it back when I was a kid. You can just skip through all the tutorial stuff, though. We already know how the game works. We've beaten it. I will admit, though, I definitely wasn't expecting it to be this short, let's just say. I was expecting Team Host's missions to take at least a little longer, and admittedly for the longest time I never actually was able to figure out how you were supposed to do Rocket Excel, but now it seems I can do it mostly okay. This whole thing really does make it feel as though the beach area technically has 3 stages to it. I must say, in terms of art style, I think in terms of more modern stuff, which is based more off the Uikawa artwork, I'd generally say in terms of an art style, aside from, you know, the sheen, the plasticine like models and figures and how they look, I think this is still probably how the modern series should look, or at least try to emulate in terms of art style. Obviously I prefer something which is more in line with the artwork, because it's like, even now, that artwork is iconic. Like, I got like just a stock poster of that artwork from this one place which we usually vacation to, and even that had like a crazy amount of demand for it. Okay, I may have undersold the lightspeed attack a little bit there. It is generally quite fun to use. Though as you could probably see, it's not exactly the longest range. But yeah, there's a particular reason why I wanted to go through this, because this particular setting, for me at the very least, always seemed like a fairly good lead-in for... I know I already showed this on stream before, but I may as well do it to wrap it up again. The opening cinematic, which I always thought was just really exemplified the energy I loved from this game. The sort of energy that really wanted me to make me want to just go out there and give it my all, if that makes any sense. Just yeah, I really need a drink. It's so hard to believe that it's been 20 years since this game came out already. I remember when I was first playing this as a kid, it's just... I feel so old. So old, and... from here I've seen where this series has gone, and honestly... it has led me to question whether or not all of it was worth it, but... going back and looking at this game again especially... I can at least appreciate the fun moments I had with it. And I can only hope that, I can just continue to take the series a bit less seriously, as, well... getting into the discourse, let's just say, hasn't exactly been the most healthy experience. And I look forward mostly to just learning to enjoy this series for what it is again, and mostly ignoring... yeah, exactly. What we think was 10 years ago versus what actually was 10 years ago. I will admit I'm definitely one of those... the 1980s was 20 years ago, as opposed to the 1980s now being 40 years ago, which, where has the time gone? But yeah. I wanted to try continue to enjoy this series a little bit more. Hopefully find means of not complaining as much, because again, not the healthiest thing. And I mean, obviously I'll want to criticize from time after time, because, well, criticism generally speaking is healthy, but I don't think that should come at the expense of the stuff that I can enjoy about it. So I'm gonna go away now and think about what Sonic game which I'm planning to stream next. Already have a couple of ideas, but until then, I'll see you then. Hopefully next time I'll be able to articulate a little bit more, but take care. Bye-bye.